It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I am Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Jaconis, both of us in the state of Florida currently as we record this episode, not together, in different parts of the state. But, you know, as the tropical storm blew through, we were down in Florida, and who knew that me not being in New York would be the right spot to be for a tropical storm, as hopefully everyone is drying out from some of the flooding in New York. If we have any listeners who happen to live in my neighborhood, there was some water up there.
Check on your apartment, make sure it's not underwater. That'd be the first. What floor do you live on?
Thankfully, we're on the 6th. We're on the top floor of our building.
So I don't know. there might be time to get a cruise ship and paddle on up to see if your belongings are still there.
So long as the roof did not cave in on our building, we're probably doing okay.
I liked how we were. I've been good. Thank you, buddy. It was good seeing you last week for the 4th. Got to see many of our friends. Always a good time. What I was going to say was, it was funny. We were together last week. Actually, maybe us being together in the same room is the luck that the Tigers need, because when we were together, they went 2-0. We saw each other 2 days, 3 days, 2 days. They went 2-0 for those two. They beat the Sox, and then they beat the Rangers that first game. But what's funny, when we got together, we were like, yeah, maybe we'll do a show. We'll break away for 20 minutes, half hour. And then it was like the best we could do was just take a quick picture on the beach, a selfie, because we were enjoying the 4th. We were enjoying the weather. It was a beautiful day down here in beautiful Naples, Florida. Well, technically, we were in Bonita Beach, Florida, on the 4th of July. But, you know, same stew, different menu, if you want to call it that. And it was a wonderful time. Tigers played well. We got to see each other, and I've been good. We and the storm back by you, I know there's been crazy flooding up here. We just got through tropical storm Elsa, I should say. I don't think she was technically classified as a hurricane. Tropical storm Elsa. So that was my first tropical storm since I moved down to Florida. So that was fun, and I must say it was fine. I didn't think it was anything too insane. It rained a lot, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, it seemed like a bad thunderstorm, which I imagine just gets worse once they become classified as hurricanes and become windy.
For the record, I hope that's how all of the remaining tropical storms and hurricanes are for the rest of this hurricane season and for however long I'm living in Florida, because if that's the case, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. But let's hope for more things like Elsa, nothing like Irma. I think let's kind of be more in that mind frame. But things are good. Florida's good. It's hot. It's rainy. It's in the middle of the summer. We're finally on an all-star break. The Tigers are kind of playing crappy, and that's where life is at this moment.
Yeah. So we are gonna dive into kind of some of our thoughts on the first half of the season later in the show, but it obviously is also draft time, and so we're gonna kind of open the show here talking a little bit about the draft and our thoughts on what's been going on. The pick is in. Jackson Jobe was the first pick for the Detroit Tigers. Luke, do you have the other picks in front of you?
I do. That's how great of a journalist I am. All of my facts are right there in front of me. I want to preface this conversation, and I think I can speak for both of us on this, Alex. You and I have never, nor will we ever pretend to be the biggest college baseball aficionados. There are many other great Tigers podcasts out there that really do deep dives into draft day, prospects, all that good stuff. Our main focus is usually what's going on at the major league level. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend, and I don't think you will either, that we are going to know every single thing about all these draft picks. I could tell you just a little bit about probably Jack Leiter and a little bit now of Jackson Jobe. And that was pretty much the extent of my draft day knowledge, even with football. I'm never like a huge, I don't really follow the college level that much. So this is always something I have to just say before we move forward. But to answer your question, yes, I do have our picks. And as you just said a moment ago, Jackson Jobe, the right-handed pitcher out of Heritage Hall High School, I believe that is in Oklahoma, if I am correct on that, is going to be a Tiger. He is 18 years old, and he is now going to be playing for the Detroit Tigers. From what I can tell and what little research I've done today, People think this kid is got a very, very, very high ceiling. Of course, there's some, concerns. Completely, it seems, as of now, just bypassing the collegiate aspect and just going right to the, the minors and beginning his journey to become a major leaguer. So that's always a little bit nerve-wracking, no doubt about it. But people think that this dude's ceiling is incredibly high, and they think he is going to be an impact player in the not too distant future. Impact player in the sense that he won't maybe need to be developed in the minors 4 or 5 years. They're thinking by maybe 2023, he could be a big name in Detroit, which that alone is exciting for me. Whether or not it happens, only time will tell. But Jackson Jobe was this year's first round pick for the Detroit Tigers. He went 3rd overall. Welcome to Detroit, Jackson.
Yeah, I think, and this is sort of where I'm going to dive in. I told you before we started recording, Luke, that I don't necessarily have a lot of reaction to the draft picks themselves, because, as you said, we are not a prospect show. We do not follow the prospects with any kind of knowledge or regularity. And so just sort of this sort of general reaction, and especially with a sport like baseball, this is my reminder to everybody. Unlike the NFL draft, where your first, second round picks, you're expecting to come into the organization and, if not start that year, be a high impact guy in the time that you come in. But in general, you're expecting your first and second round picks to slot into your roster immediately. That expectation is nowhere near the Major League Baseball draft. You are expecting these guys 5 years from now to be into something. So first, I understand the disappointment by Tigers Twitter that perhaps the best overall player fell to them at 3 and they did not take Meyer. But we need a shortstop yesterday. We don't need a shortstop 3 years from now. We probably will, but we need a shortstop yesterday. So that he didn't take a shortstop is not one of the many reasons to fire Avila. There are many reasons to fire Al. That's not one of them.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
because I will also remind folks, most of our hot pitching talent in our farm system is about to debut or has debuted. There's not a lot of pitching prospects still hanging out in the organization. So it is, as much as we also need bats in the organization and need great position players, we don't have a lot of pitching talent waiting in the wings. And what I do like about, this, would you tell me 5 of the first 7 are
so as of now, while we're recording on Monday evening at almost 5:30 p.m. Through the first 7 rounds, the Tigers have taken 5 pitchers and only 2 position players. So hey, look, pitching never, it never hurts to have a lot of pitching. We've seen that recently with the Tigers. They've had injuries. You can never have enough pitching. So I actually have no issues with that. I don't know where you stand with that, but I'm cool taking all these pitchers.
No, I think it's great because I think about, we're in a wealth of young pitching talent. We have, the best years of Mize, Skubal, Manning, eventually Faedo ahead of us. But
Joey Wentz
in 5-6 years, we're probably going to be looking at a situation where some of those guys are going to be entering free agency, and it's not going to make fiscal sense to tie up the team payroll wise in all of those guys. And so what you do want coming up the pike is the next generation of those guys. And I think that this draft seems like a good start on that. And so I think that, like, as we have talked about time and time again, how the St. Louis Cardinals never seem to be rebuilding. This seems to be a step in that direction, in that, okay, now we have to plan ahead, continue to go, so that we can, have a strong pitching core. Some of these guys may have been starters in college, will certainly become relievers by the time they make it to the major leagues. And that's obviously as we talk about especially the last week of the first half of the season, we'll talk about bullpen depth is still continuing to be a major problem. Even our all-star Gregory Soto. And so we'll dive into that, but that's sort of my generic reaction to the draft. I don't think that Al has always had, high picks to work with, and that's, easy, easier said than done, but Al's never been particularly bad at the draft. I think he's pretty good at listening to his scouts, and their eye for talent can be a little bit different than other organizations, but so far in the Avila era, it seemed pretty okay. And so I don't know that there's, again, I always hate when I get tied into knots here where I feel like I'm defending Avila, because I'm right there with all of you in that I want Avila fired. But this is not a reason why. I don't know that another GM would be doing much different than what Al is doing.
Yeah, I am glad you brought up the point, because I say it all the time, because sometimes I see comments on Twitter where it's like, oh, Avila's such a bad GM. He drafted Mize, and he drafted Torque, and he drafted Riley Green. And it's like, well, of course he drafted those guys. They've had a top 5 pick in the draft. What is it, the last 5 or 6 years at this point? I mean, it's easy to, we've said this before, it's easy to get those guys when they're pretty much handed to you on a silver platter. I don't think that takes smart draft strategy. I just think that takes you not being a complete and utter moron, which even then sometimes Al defies that logic, but that's for later on in the show. And I want to go back to the point that I said earlier, so 5 out of these 7 guys, let me just run through the names here real quick. Again, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, we're not draft pros by any means. There's plenty of other good Tigers podcasts out there where they talk about the minors and the draft and the college. Go check out our friends, Roger and Chris from the Tigers SRD. Those guys are awesome. They can give you all of the great little kind of intricacies of how it all works, below the major league level. They're great. So go give them a listen. But so we took in the first round Jackson Jobe. Then right after, Ty Madden was drafted, a right-handed pitcher out of Texas. Then we had our first position player. I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, but I'm just going to do my best. It looks like it's Isaac Pacheco from Friendswood, Texas. He's a shortstop third baseman. It's funny, he spells it Izaac. I'm assuming that's Isaac, but when you look at Isaac Paredes' spelling of his first name, you think he would be Isaac Paredes too, but he is not. So Isaac Pacheco, shortstop coming out of Texas. That's cool. Third round, we got Dylan Smith, a right-handed pitcher out of Alabama. Fourth round, Tyler Madison, right-handed pitcher out of Bryant. Tanner Collip, that was in the 5th round, right-handed pitcher out of Notre Dame. Rudy Rudiger's alma mater. Austin Murr, outfielder from North Carolina State. He was in the 6th round. And again, as of now, recording on this Monday evening, July 12th at 5:30 p.m., the 7th round pick was Brant Herter, a left-handed pitcher out of Georgia Tech. So lots of pitchers. I think that I'm okay with them going all in on all these pitchers because, as we just said, as you just kind of alluded to a little while ago, you can never have enough pitching talent. I mean, especially look at right now where this team is in terms of middle relief. Not good, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. What this means to me, and I tweeted this out a little bit before we started recording, they've drafted a ton of pitchers. They went all in on the pitching this draft. Fine. I really don't have any issues with that. Now, this means, in my opinion, it has to mean that this offseason, they're going to spend big money on some offensive talent. I mean, it's just, and I have a whole little spiel about that plan for a little later on in the show on how I think we're really going to get to know where Chris Ilitch stands with this team, if he really gives a damn or if he doesn't, and we'll know that how he handles this offseason. But just as where we're at right now in July, 5-6 months removed from when we could probably potentially start seeing some really big moves happen, it just seems that that's the only logical explanation at this point. Because yes, while Green and Torque and Dylan Dingler and some other big names down in the minors are really raking, and they're really kind of starting to make their presence known as their debuts inch closer and closer. Probably seeing a lot of those guys maybe next year, we're thinking at this point. There still is going to be a lot more additional help that's needed. And since it didn't really happen in this draft, there's really one only logical other option, and that's either via signing people or making some big trades this offseason. So that's just kind of how I feel. I'm okay with bringing on all these pitchers. You can never have enough pitching talent. Even look at big prospects like Faedo and Joey Wentz. They've had injuries that have now kind of backtracked them onto making their debuts with the Tigers. Look at guys this year who we love: Spencer Turnbull, Matthew Boyd, both been shut down since June. We don't really know when they're coming back. We're assuming it's sometime after the All-Star break, but there's not really a definite timetable for their return. So you need pitching. Pitching can win games. Mm-hmm. If this stupid-ass Minnesota series taught us anything this past weekend, pitching can win you games. I hope Derek Holland, Ian Kroll, Buck Farmer, and Joe Jimenez heard that correctly. Pitching can win you games. But yeah, so anyways, I'm cool with this. I have no issues. I'm bringing it back to Jackson Jobe. I hope he's an all-star. I mean, theoretically, if this kid pans out on paper, the Tigers are going to have one of the best starting rotations, if not in the American League, all of baseball. Hell, they could be the best starting rotation in all of baseball. And here's one thing, too. This is a great tweet I saw earlier. I wish I would have taken a screenshot so I could have given this person credit, whoever tweeted it out. These guys that are with this club now on the pitching side and all these young bucks who are just drafted will eventually get through the minors. Some of them will make it to Detroit. Some of them won't. That's just the nature of how it works when you're a prospect in the minor league system. If they get to Detroit, though, there's this gentleman by the name of Chris Fetter. And I cannot think of better young talent that just needs that little tweak, that little push towards being a star, getting those little minor flaws developed and just kind of kinked out of the system. I can't think of a guy who can do that better than Chris Fetter. I have been supremely impressed with Chris Fetter and the entire coaching staff as a whole, and I'll get to that a little bit after our ad break, too, when we do our pros and cons. But, yeah, I think on paper, this is fine. Mm-hmm. I'm not freaking out like Tigers Twitter. I know you have some thoughts about that, which we'll get to in a moment, I'm sure. But this is fine. Some prospects are going to work. Some of them aren't. Obviously, with a guy like Jackson Jobe, I understand kind of the reason for concern. You brought up a great point in terms of why they didn't take Meyer. I mean, I totally understood that because, like you said, we don't need a shortstop 3 or 4 years from now. We needed one probably in April when this season began. Mm-hmm. So I'm game with all this. Let's see how these guys pan out. Some will, some won't. That's just the nature of the beast. And for those who can get to Detroit, they are in a phenomenal place with Chris Fetter, by their side. I mean, talk about a great coach to have to aid you and only becoming a better major league pitcher. Chris Fetter is the guy to do it. So I'm okay with this draft. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Do I think this saves Al Avila's job? Hell no. That guy should have been gone 2 years ago, and I'm going to get to that too in a little bit. But for what it's worth, I think this is fine. I'm not freaking out. I'm cool with it. They've got a lot of pitching coming up. They just added to that, and now the onus really just kind of gets looked towards Chris Ilitch, and he's got to spend some money this offseason to bring in some talent on the offensive side of things. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And some of my points on this draft are going to dovetail into. So I'll kind of use this to wrap up the draft conversation, send us into the ad break, and then we'll talk about the season. Because I think the biggest thing for me that I'm looking at this and looking at the way AJ Hinch is running the Tigers and the way that his coaching staff is working with guys and what they are demonstrating to me in the purest way is that you cannot win a championship without a strong rotation and bullpen. That you could have nameless guy number 4 playing shortstop. And if you have the best rotation and bullpen in baseball, as long as that guy can hit, north of 250, you're probably going to win. Mm-hmm. You're going to do great. That's where championships are won and lost. And that's ultimately what I care about as a Tigers fan is I want to see us get to that point, which is certainly causing much of the frustration this season. But as we look at the draft, I think that's what we're seeing, that philosophy start to play out is that all of these guys, and you just said it, Luke, and giving that credit to the Twitter user where you saw it, all of these guys are going to come up. They're going to get Chris Fetter at the majors, but they're coming up in what is going to be a Chris Fetter designed program.
Exactly.
And so all of these guys, I would put all of their ceilings ahead of Mize, Skubal, Manning, Faedo, because they're going to get all of this extra development time in a Fedor-led program. And so that's going to just put them light years ahead. And that sets us up to have, a 10 pitcher rotation that we have to send some guys to the bullpen because they're just going to be great. And it's going to be a relatively cheap rotation.
Yep. A lot of young talent, a lot of young talent for cheap labor. I know it sounds kind of wrong, but
which frees up money to go spend on a shortstop, on a hot bat, on the hot free agent, which I think becomes the recipe for the future if Illich is willing to open his wallet.
Yeah, we'll figure it. We'll know about that come December and January. And just in a little breaking news as we're recording this show, with the next pick in the draft, the Tigers have selected right-handed pitcher Garrett Burhen from Ohio State University with their ninth round pick in the 2021 MLB draft. So, again, just keeping with the status quo of this episode so far, they are loading up on pitching, and hopefully it works out for them. We shall see.
Yeah. And if nothing
else, did you want to make fun of Tigers Twitter real quick? Or
I think I've made my piece.
You've jabbed them enough.
Yeah,
let's just see what happens.
It's ultimately well, and I also I lived in Philadelphia for about a year, and one of my favorite things was after tuning in to Philadelphia sports talk after team lost, because people calling in, they could be now, the Eagles could now be 11-1, and it was just shut it down, fire everybody, it's over. There's no point anymore. And I would always laugh as a Detroit fan, because we were like, man, if we were 1-11, we're probably like, all right, things are looking up. And so now I think we've just been like in this drudgery for a while. And I hate the phrase trust the process. I don't want to tell anybody to trust the process, because Al has given us no reason to trust the process.
Yeah.
However,
I would trust Bernie Madoff before I would trust Avila.
In July, ask the Mets how that's working out. In July 2021, we're stuck with the process. So we just have to let it play out, even if we don't trust it. That we have to kind of let this play out, which means we have to temper our expectations to a certain extent. And I think that some of that's coming out in the frustration over not taking a shortstop number 3, because we do need a shortstop, but Meyer wasn't going to be our shortstop. He wasn't coming to Detroit next week.
That's fair. I can get on board with that. Yeah.
So let's take our ad break, and then we will talk about the first half of the season, the wild roller coaster ride it was. We'll be right back.
Okay.
We are back on the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. Luke, things were looking up for about 6 weeks before last week, as the Tigers limped into the All-Star break. I called for a 5-2 week. Did not happen. The 5-2.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. The Tigers played some of the worst baseball this last weekend in Minnesota that I've seen in a long time. And to be fair, look, anyone who knows me, who follows the show, who follows us on Twitter, I'm a very passionate tweeter. A lot of my stuff that I'm tweeting out is spur of the moment, angry, frustrated, and a lot of times I can tweet something and I can look back the next day and be like, yeah, that was probably a bit, irrational of me, but it is what it is. I stand by what I say. I'm not one to really backtrack. You got to admit when you're right, got to admit when you're wrong. I think it's kind of it's a fair way to go about it, I think. I did tweet out yesterday, though, that I thought that this sweep to the Tigers voided every good thing that happened in the first half. And while I can admit, I think that was a bit dramatic, I don't think it's that dramatic. Because to me, this sweep at the hands of the Twins, who are an awful baseball team, by the way, I will give them credit. I do think they are better offensively than they have performed. I don't think their pitching is anything to write home about. I've never been that high on the Twins. Even when they win the Central, they're eliminated from the playoffs within 24 hours. They haven't won a playoff game since like 2003. They are the biggest waste of space when it comes to postseason baseball, the Minnesota Twins, point blank period. For them to get swept by the Twins at home when they were leading late in 3 out of those 4 games was a uppercut to the gonads. It was brutal. And it truly made me think for a moment. I think these last 2 months, were those flukes? Like, were those fluke wins? How do you play so well and beat teams like the White Sox, like the Astros? The Rangers aren't very good either. The White Sox, the Astros, the Tigers. I think this season went 5-1 against the Seattle Mariners. I'm not saying the Seattle Mariners are a team like the Dodgers, the Padres, or the Giants, but they're a pretty solid ball club compared to years past. And the Tigers handled them very well this entire season. How do you play so well against those teams and then get your ass handed to you like they did in Minnesota this past weekend? It's truly dumbfounding to me. But then I kind of really had to take a breath, sleep it off, really think about it as a whole. Starting pitching wasn't the issue. Offense pretty much was there. It comes down to the bullpen. The bullpen was so bad this past week. And now I can see the argument that this is a taxed bullpen because this Tigers team is reeling right now. Lots of injuries, lots of, bullpen days with guys starting long innings. You can't pitch Kyle Funkhauser every inning of every game. I think if we did, though, we probably would have at least won. We probably would have split this series at the very least. But it was just a frustrating game. And I have some notes here in a little bit with our little pros and cons that I want to talk about. But, that sweep at the hands of the Twins truly made me think, given how bad they played in April and early May, then they had 2 good months with May and June. Now, I don't mean to sound mean when I say this, but both those months that they had, May and June, they finished with a winning record. That's awesome. But let's not pretend that they were like 10 to 15 games over 500. Like, they had either a 500 record or they were maybe a game or 2 over 500. I get it. Progress, small steps, all that good stuff. They hadn't had a winning season like that, I think, a winning back-to-back months since I think it was 2017. If I'm not mistaken, it was either 17 or 16. So I get it. You want to take the small victories where you can get them. But still, barely finishing 500, and that's great. They're finishing 500. It's all good stuff, but they're barely finishing 500. They're barely having those winning months. And then they have this pathetic display in Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe that rage tweet wasn't completely out of the realm of possibilities. I can acknowledge that the first half of the season, there were some pros. I've actually, with my pros and cons list, I think I probably have more pros than I do cons, which is great. But this latest sweep at the hands of the Minnesota Twins was truly inexcusable. It was awful. I don't know how after some losses like that, AJ Hinch doesn't want to grab Joe Jimenez by his pants and just whoosh him out the door like he's DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and say, you will never pitch for this team again. Joe Jimenez, Buck Farmer, Daniel Norris, I'm sorry, guys. You've had your chance. You're gone. You're done. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think that for me, I don't know that I want to go quite so far as to say this sweep from the Twins erases all of the good from the past 2 months, but I do think that it truly highlighted where this team is really deficient. Because I even think back on infield and defensive play has not been great most of the year. But they were able to win that one game against the White Sox when they had 10 errors. And so it's one of those, it's a reminder of baseball that defensive play is rarely going to be the real difference in a game. Obviously, great defense can save some runs, and we actually saw that in a couple of moments with the Twins where a couple of their guys made really nice defensive plays that stole a base or two from the Tigers, which ultimately stole a run, which ultimately maybe led
stole
to
a game.
the loss. But they'd scored 9 runs that game. So if you can't win when you score 9, I believe Jack Morris likes to say he would tell Gibby that he never lost when the Tigers scored 10 runs. And that's probably pretty true. I don't know if that would be true if Jack were pitching for this Tigers team.
He's probably better than Derek Holland. Hey, you want to hear a funny joke? You want to know who's never going to win Derek Holland's pitching championship belt? Derek Holland.
Yeah.
That guy sucks. He used to be good. Get him out of there. That guy's so bad. Derek.
Unfortunate.
Derek, I mean, he was brought in on like a flyer anyways. Like he had a pretty good spring training, which is cool. Good for him. But it's like, dude, come on, man. Like I couldn't believe when he gave up that home run in the bottom of the 9th. Like I couldn't believe it, but as soon as it happened, I was like, nope, this all makes sense. This all checks out. This math adds up. This makes sense. This is as soon as that home run was hit, I was like, this game's over. They're going to lose the game. I knew what was happening. It wasn't me just being a whiny baby crybaby fan. I just knew. I tweeted out, I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends. And that's why, and I know we want to get to the little pros and stuff here in a second. And I don't mean to be Mr. Negative right now. I really don't. The Tigers in May and June, the schedule was stacked against them. And although they've just kind of barely had those winning months, they were winning months regardless. And again, I'm not taking anything away from them. That was truly impressive what they did in May and June.
Those were winning months on paper where they should have been 5 or 10 games under 500.
Exactly. So that alone is impressive, and I will give the Tigers all the credit in the world for that. This upcoming month of July, this is a month where you should think if the Tigers were playing as well as they were in May and June, and if they really aren't this team that just got swept by the Twins, if they're better than that, this is the month now where theoretically they should be finishing what? 6, 7, 8, 9 games over 500. I mean, they're playing the Twins, the Rangers, the Orioles, and the Royals. I think that's pretty much the bulk of the schedule for the month of July. And yet I have this gut feeling that this will be the month that the Tigers are 4 or 5 under 500. I mean, I tweeted out yesterday, like I said, I want to be positive, but I've been a Tigers fan my entire life, as have you, Alex. I know how this movie ends. Right when you think they're going to maybe kind of make that push, are they going to like, we were just talking last week, like, is this team going to be like 500, like right after the All-Star break? And now it's like, are they even going to be able to finish 500 this season? You know, and I'm not trying to be over dramatic over a 4-game series sweep to the Twins, but, you know, I think it's kind of warranted. It was a horrible series. Again, not all around. You know, I probably said that it was all around, and I take that back from my rage tweets. But what we saw that bullpen do these last 4 games was, in my mind, unforgivable. But then again, it's been unforgivable my entire time being a Tigers fan. The bullpen has never been good, and I will truly never believe the bullpen is good until I see it with my very eyes, because I truly think it's like a pipe dream.
I mean, I guess that, you know, certainly you said it yourself. The bullpen is taxed. There's been a heavy reliance on the bullpen. But that being said, if the issue is rest, if that was the issue against the Twins, that they were tired, the first week after the All-Star break is an inverse of the prior week. We get the Rangers and the Twins again. And if rest was the issue, the Tigers should go 7. They should have 7 wins in the next week. Yep. Because there's no reason that the way the Tigers played in May and June, that they should not be sweeping the floor with these guys. There's also no reason with the way the Tigers were hitting against the Twins that they shouldn't have at least split, if not swept, that series on the inverse. So, I mean, it's just like through, I think I can't remember the statistic, but somebody tweeted out, and I think we retweeted it, that like through 5 innings in the Minnesota series, the Tigers won like 12-2. And in the last 4 innings of each game, it's like 22-6.
It was Evan Woodbury tweeted out this weekend so far. Innings 1 through 5, Tigers were up 10-2 on the Twins. Innings 6 through 9, nice. Twins were up 22-3 on the Tigers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's your issues right there. The middle relief is terrible.
An offense problem.
Yeah. The middle relief for the Tigers is terrible. And you know what? Since we're just kind of here, I have my pros and cons. I know you didn't really, I probably should have been a better co-host, but like, hey, I'm going to do a pros and cons list. You should make one too. But I have plenty to yab about now that you could just chime in if you agree, disagree, whatever. So I'm going to start cons first since we're on the negative train, and then we're going to end on a positive note.
I love that. I love it.
So let's just start where we left off. The mineral leaf is trash. It is absolute, utter garbage. Some of the worst. It's been bad for the last 3 or 4 years. It has not proved whatsoever. Again, the important word there is the middle relief. The back of this bullpen, I am very impressed with, and I'll get to that later. But Buck Farmer, Daniel Norris, Derek Holland, and Joe Jimenez, they got to go. I'm sorry, and especially Joe Jimenez. He has had multiple opportunities. I always watch Chris Castellani's post games on his Twitter, and he had some sort of stat where he said, since June of 2018, Joe Jimenez's ERA has been north of 6 since June of 2018. And remember, in the summer of 2018, he was still an all-star. So like he must have gotten voted in as an all-star. And as soon as he got voted in, that's when his decline started and has not gone up since. Joe Jimenez needs to go. I know he pitched better the last couple of weeks when the Tigers were playing well and they were winning some games. That's cool and all. I have no trust in this guy whatsoever. He has no command. He is absolutely terrible. I cannot stand him. When he comes into the game, I want to shut it off because I have zero faith in that man. And he has completely broken my trust and he will never get it back. It's as simple as that. Daniel Norris is kind of a bummer because we do like Norris. He seems like a cool dude. He's just one of these guys. I feel like he's just been around a long time and nothing has happened. Like Joe Jimenez has had a lot of opportunity. Daniel Norris has had opportunity and then some. He's had opportunity as a starter, as a middle reliever, as a spot starter, as a late inning guy. And it's just like, it just never really seems to click. He's just too inconsistent. Buck Farmer, more or less the same tune. I know last year we were really big on him. If I had to pick one guy where I was like, you get the free pass to come back next year, I would give it to Buck Farmer, just because I do think that there is just a sliver of potential there, but I'm not holding my breath much longer on that.
I think just on Buck Farmer real quick, I do think I agree with he's been awful this year. We were pretty hot on him last year. I think part of it last year, he had a very clear defined role. He has not necessarily had that here, and he might be a guy that thrives much more in a clearly defined role, which may mean he just doesn't work in AJ Hinch's organization.
Well, yeah, because remember what AJ said during spring training? It was like, don't be surprised to see a guy like Buck Farmer in the 5th inning. Well, it appears that Buck Farmer cannot be that guy who bounces from the 8th inning to the 5th inning. So either they need to get him a clear and definitive role in this bullpen where it's like, Buck, you're the 7th inning man, go out there, get the hold, keep the line moving, or they just need to say deuces and they need to go their separate ways.
Yeah, because most of the guys you listed, Joe Jimenez in particular, I'm like, you guys can just leave Major League Baseball. I don't need to see you ever throw again. I hope Daniel Norris could find a team somewhere, but I don't think he's going to bring value to any franchise. Buck Farmer, in a situation where he can be the 7th inning guy, as a great example. I think he could thrive and he could be very good in that situation. That just may not be the way the Tigers want to operate.
Yeah, I agree. Keeping it with pitching, I'm going to go to the starters here because actually the starting pitching overall will be on my pros part. But one pitcher in particular who makes the cons list for the starters, that is Jose Urena. I wrote down it was fun in April and May, but I'm good. I don't need to see any more of Jose Urena. The hard part is, though, it's like really who does replace him at this point in time? Because if you keep skipping him, you do a bullpen day, then the bullpen gets taxed. So what this team really needs is for Spencer Turnbull and Matthew Boyd to get their asses healthy so they can come back to this team and rightfully take back their spots in the rotation. Because then you got Spence, Matthew Boyd, Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning, and you know what? With his little resurgence lately, I'm cool with Willie Peralta too. Then you got 6 guys you can mix and match. Maybe Willie goes to the pen, maybe he doesn't. Maybe Manning's back in AAA for a little bit. Like, just who knows? But whatever the case may be, no more Urena. Again, he had a nice little hot start to the season. That was cool, great, fun and all. But he has truly proven that he is an innings eater, and not even a very good innings eater at that. The dude just gets tattooed every time he takes the mound. and I can't take it much more. And I also wrote down, hopefully after this year, we won't be needing any more innings eaters. And if all these pitchers that we've drafted and are still in the minors are any indication, hopefully the time of the innings eater is soon leaving the Detroit Tigers, but we'll have to see. Let's see, where do we go next? Okay, so something you've already mentioned, and this is a no-brainer, defense. This team desperately needs middle infield help, but in particular a shortstop, and I like the guy. We're at one point in time best friends, then we weren't, then we were. Now I don't think we are. Nico Goodrum is not the answer. Harold Castro is not the answer. Willie Castro at second or short, definitely not the answer.
Have we considered just making Harold Castro a middle reliever? Like his ERA is pretty good.
What was the percentage that Harold Castro came in to pitch during that Sunday monstrosity? I honestly thought if Harold comes in to pitch right now, Harold Castro gives a walk-off 3-run home run. I'm like, well, this makes sense. We have a utility infielder on the mound right now, but he's got the career 0 ERA, and I think if I remember correctly, early on in the season, he retired Nelson Cruz. So I mean, why did we not give Harold a chance last game?
Sunday afternoon, Willie Castro pinch hit for Harold Castro. Was that in the ninth as well? Was that in the top of the ninth?
I believe it was in the ninth. I think
I got very nervous in that moment because I was like, oh no, that means Harold can't come in to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
He's already been removed from the game.
Terrible. What? Maybe that was a bad.
What were you thinking, AJ?
AJ, that was AJ Hinch's one of his worst calls of the season, taking the bat and then the pitching glove out of Harold Castro's hands. But the defense is awful. We've talked about this enough this year. They're just so bad. They don't seem to do anything right, especially in the infield. Even in the outfield lately, it seems to kind of be seeping in with guys like Eric Haas. And I won't get on him too much because the guy is a catcher. He's not really a left fielder, but he's had some blunders. Jamer has not been as consistent at third base this year either. Shortstop is an absolute catastrophe. How Willie Castro, this is a point I have on my list too. Lineup is inconsistent. It's time to move away from Willie Castro, I think. I'm truly okay with, if they want to bring up a guy like Paredes, or if they want to try to put, again, I'm cool if they want to put Scope back at second and get a guy like Renato Nunez up here. We haven't heard his name in quite a few months, it seems. But I think the Willie Castro ship for me has sailed. I'm cool, though. I will say this. I don't think he's by any means the shortstop of the future, but I'm okay with Zach Short getting some reps for the time being. I mean,
doing fine.
Truly, what harm could it do at this point in time? So to put a positive spin there. So yeah, defense no good.
My biggest issue with Scope at first is there's been a couple of times of just watching the mix of guys at shortstop and second look absolutely lost at how to turn a double play, and I'm like, can we at least put Jonathan there because he knows what to do? And then also there have been some less than great throws across the diamond to first base that I think Scope is just not practiced enough at digging them out to get the out at first, that I think if we had even a more serviceable first baseman who was a true first baseman, there's maybe a couple of outs there that we would have gotten that we didn't get otherwise.
It really is a pick your poison thing. Do you want the aging Miguel Cabrera, who every time he makes like a athletic play in the field, you hold your breath to make sure he's going to be okay? Do you want Jonathan Scope, who is a second baseman by trade? Or would you like Renato Nunez, who is known for hitting home runs and his defense is awful? Or I guess a guy like Harold Castro, who just plays everywhere. So it's like, pick your poison, Tigers fans. What do you want? Let us know. So maybe that just means, again, they should have, a big first baseman coming in. Maybe give up on the whole Spencer Torkelson at third base thing. Put him at first. It just makes sense. Come on, folks. Get with it. Lineup is inconsistent, I think, overall. That's just kind of a blanket statement. I do think, we see spurts where the bottom half is more productive and the top half is more productive, but I just think as an overall flow, not anything that I'm particularly impressed with. Here's a great question. How is Nomar Mazara still on this team? It just doesn't make any sense. When he takes at bats, it was funny. At the beginning of the year, I told you, when April and May were on, I was like, sometimes I forget Nomar's on this team. When he takes an at bat, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot Nomar's here. And now when he takes at bats, I'm like, what are you doing here? How are you still here? I can't he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything. Like, I don't think he's the absolute worst baseball player of all time, but he's just like so Manila. It's like Nomar. What are you? How are you still here? How have you not lost like your access code to get into the stadium? I'm so surprised and questioned. I'm befuddled. Truly, I'm befuddled.
Yeah, it's weirdly for the conversations at the beginning of the year of like why did we bring Nomar Mazara along for the ride when there's so much outfield talent? Obviously, there's been some injuries, and so that's changed the makeup of the outfield. But I feel like I shouldn't. If we sign a guy like Nomar Mazara in the offseason, I shouldn't be really excited to see catcher Eric Haas in the outfield over a guy like Nomar Mazara.
Here's a fair question, and this is a guy's name we haven't heard in a long time, but like with a guy like Nomar Mazara, is he really doing better to the point where you can't cut him and recall someone like Jacoby Jones or Kristen Stewart to be like, look, you can't be worse than Nomar. And if you are, we'll get rid of you too. You're on your way out as it is. Give one of those guys a shot. I mean, it's just, or can we ring up the Atlanta Braves and see if Travis DeMeritt wants to come back to Detroit? Like, it's not, I mean, Nomar has not done anything this well where he should be getting consistent starts for this ball club. And you would assume that once Daz Cameron is healthy and Derek Hill, who is healthy right now and is just in AAA waiting, why he's not back up with the team I guess that would be a con, that Derek Hill should be back with his team. But anyway,
I guess the only thing I can think is that I don't know what Derek's option situation is right now. I don't know if they're waiting for Daz to get healthy so they can see if Daz is going to work out, or if they need to, so that they don't have to bring Derek up and then send him back down. That's the only thing I just look at an option. Yeah. I just look at it this way. Like, at this point in time, Tigers aren't making a run for the AL Central this year. We want to see them just get improvements. It'd be great to see him try to make a somewhat finish near 500 run in this second half. I don't know why you don't just let Derek Hill and Daz Cameron maybe platoon in right field when they're both healthy. You can put, Teal Badu in center. You can put one of them in center. You got Robbie in left. Robbie plays all over. But yeah, as long as anyone but Nomar at this point, he just doesn't fit in with this team at all, I think, moving forward. And then three kind of more fun ones, but not really fun ones. Okay, Alex, I have another question, a very serious question. We're going to lose George Lombard next season, aren't we? 100%.
Yeah. As good as gone.
I don't know where he's going specifically, but I can't see him not getting picked up for whatever managerial job opens.
Yep. I think he is as good as gone, and good for him. I mean, he almost became the Tigers manager this year. So I think this was just kind of inevitable. This is kind of his, last season maybe of being the student teacher, so to speak. And next year, the student becomes the teacher. So that'll be fun. And then just two quick ones real quick, which it's pretty normal what we usually do. Avila still hasn't been fired, so that's a con. And it would spend money this offseason. Who knows? So that's a con too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I am getting myself mentally prepared to just have Avila be around for the next few years. Again, and I've said this before when we talked about how Al needs to be fired, is that the only way I'm okay with Al not being fired is if he is just the GM in name only, in that he's the guy who signs the paperwork.
Yeah.
That he's doing AJ Hinch's bidding. Because I 100% trust AJ Hinch with this franchise.
Yep.
I don't trust the two guys that sign his checks.
Oh, yeah. I hope it's just AJ pulling all the strings. That's truly what I hope, and his staff. AJ and his staff, I'm cool with, but Avila has not been fired. And in my eyes, that is the biggest con of them all. Not the fact that they just lost 4 in a row to the putrid Minnesota Twins. Not the fact that Joe Jimenez could not throw a strike to save his life. The fact that Avila has not been fired is just absolutely terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But those are my cons. That's it. That's all I have. That's a lot of stuff we've talked about, to be fair. this entire first half of the season. So, I mean, it's nothing really kind of too out of left field, but there's definitely a lot of issues still. They played better. I'll give them that, but there's still a ton of issues, I think, surrounding this team, mainly with middle relief, defense, and the fact that we've got a complete bozo running the show. And his name is one Al Avila.
Have we tried Alex Avila at middle relief?
He played like shortstop the other day for the Nationals or third base, so why not?
He did indeed play shortstop.
Yeah,
and
let's give it a go.
That was a fun moment of Tigers Twitter, as much crap as I gave them before.
Yeah.
Of how disappointed will we all be, but how much do we expect the Tigers to sign shortstop Alex Avila?
You know that's what Ilitch is going to do. He's like, what? I thought we'd keep it in the family, and we're going to go, no, Chris, no. This is not what we wanted. Not what we wanted.
Not at all. Not at all. All right. We want to flip to a positive note?
Yeah, let's finish this show on a positive note. So here we go. My first big positive of the first half of the 2021 Detroit Tigers season, the coaching staff. I don't know how you can call yourself a fan of this team and not be excited for the future that consists of AJ Hinch, Chris Fetter, and Scott Kuba. I think all three of these guys are truly doing a really nice job. Hinch and Fetter in particular, but I'll give some love to Coolbaugh too. I think he's done a good amount, especially as of late, given the lineup that he has at his disposal. You know, same thing with Hinch and just, I mean, overall, they're all one big team. They're all one big, unit. And I think just the coaching staff for this Tigers team is in a good spot and will be in a good spot for hopefully many, many seasons to come. So big shout out to Coolbaugh, to Fetter, and of course to the guy himself, AJ Hinch, who, we did a show in October or November of last year when Hinch got brought on. And I remember I had a stance where it was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. It's going to attract a lot of negative press. Haven't really seen much of that. And even if there was negative press and all that crap was going on, I'm at the point now where I'm like, if we got to be the villains, if we have to be a villains because we have a guy who's got a checkered past as our head coach, and that makes us the bad guys now, if we were to bring in a guy like Carlos Correa next season to play shortstop, and that's going to make us the bad guys now because the overwhelming majority of baseball and its fans don't really like him, probably aren't really big on AJ Hinch, just because of his past, fine. So be it. Let us be the bad guys. Bring on the booze. Bring on the heel chants. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. If that means we're going to win some hardware, I am all for it. And you know what? And this isn't just me also trying to put a positive spin on it because we're Tigers fans. People can be forgiven in life too. Let's not, AJ Hinch made a really stupid mistake. He should have spoken up. He didn't. He said that a bunch. But, let's not pretend for a second this was anything like criminally egregious. I mean, he wasn't, murdering puppies behind, the Astros stadium after every game. Like he had a stupid scandal he was involved in. Like he's a good person. He made a stupid mistake. If it comes out that he is drowning puppies though, that I will unfortunately have to draw the line there. I don't know if I can be an AJ fan if that were to be the case, but I don't think that's happening. So good for you, AJ, that you're not a sociopath. Yeah, that'd be the line. So I think just overall shouts to them. No, that's all. I just shout out to the coaching staff.
For me, I think if the Tigers continue on the trajectory that they're on and end up, a 65 win team, 65, maybe 70, if we get real hot somewhere in there. I think that AJ should still be the manager of the year. What manager is doing more with less than AJ Hinch, and think about even just the injuries that he's been dealt of some of the weird things that he's had to do with this lineup. Not even just because the lineup isn't good; it's because the good guys are hurt.
Yeah.
And so I think that unfortunately, here's my actual bold prediction: AJ Hinch should be the manager of the year because they'll finish in third in the division, and that felt unheard of preseason. They'll finish in third, but Tony La Russa is going to be the manager of the year.
You think?
And I'm going to be real mad about it.
No,
no doubt about it. But it's going to be part of the Tony La Russa retirement tour.
No, my bold prediction right now, and for manager of the year, I think it'll be Gabe Kapler for the Giants. That's my prediction.
I don't even
think that's a bold prediction. I think that makes sense. What he's done with the Giants up to this point, as we're halfway through the season, the team they have been, which no one really saw coming. At least I didn't. I'll raise my hand and say, no way. I thought it was a 2-team race. So the fact what he's done with the San Francisco Giants, shout out to him, because they're a very good baseball team, and I didn't foresee that happening. Bringing it back to the Tigers, another big pro, and I want to make sure right after the coaching staff, this is probably the highlight of the first half of the season for me, Spencer Turnbull's no-hitter. I mean, no-hitters are fun. I'm sorry, Alex, that you called it an early night that evening, but for those of us who stayed up past our bedtimes, that was a wonderful evening. So cool to have a no-hitter back with the Tigers. It had been the first one in 10 years, I believe it was. Verlander, since he threw his in 2011. So that was awesome. Turnbull, please get healthy, man. I think the ceiling is so high for him. I really do. We just got to get him to stay healthy. That's as simple as that. So kind of feeding into Spencer Turnbull, something we talked about, in the kind of the cons part, the starting pitching has been great. I think I'm going to use the word great. Yeah, they're not perfect, but this is a lot of encouraging things coming from the starters, especially with the two young bucks, Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. And ever since Boyd and Turnbull went down in June, they're kind of like the guys now within the rotation. So they really have just kind of been thrusted in this position where they're the big names in the starting staff. And I think they're really taking the ball and running with it. Definitely not perfect by any means, still some growing pains. But I think for what they've done up to this point, they should be commended. Huge shout out to Casey Mize and really to Tarek Skubal too. Because remember, in April and May, Tarek Skubal was pretty bad. At a point in time, I think he was 0-6. And ever since then, he's really kind of turned it around. Again, not perfect. He's not winning the Cy Young this year, nor is Casey Mize. But they have both really pitched well this first half. And I think that should be highlighted because it really just gets you excited for what's to come down the road.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think that it is a testament to what we knew, that what the coaching staff warned us about was we were going to have to watch a little bit of development happen at the major league level. And there's not a lot of cover for these guys in veteran talent on this roster. Yep. So as soon as those guys went down, we were going to have to deal with watching Skubal get beat up a little bit, but it's clearly what he needed because he has turned it around and he's been great. Casey's been great. It's been nice to see Matt Manning throwing well as well. Just, a lot of great stuff from the starting pitching.
That was my next point. It was good to see Matt Manning debut.
Yeah, a real headache. What was going to be a real headache, that starting pitching potentially as we looked at what that rotation, what the second half of the rotation was, and now it all seems hunky-dory. Yeah, Matt Manning's debut is also great pro of the first half of the season. Sorry,
I didn't mean to cut you off. I think I was lagging or you were lagging there. We were having some tech issues, but can you hear me now? Are we all good?
Yep, we're good.
Wonderful. No, that was my next point. Sorry, I don't know how that will come out when this is all said and done, but that was my next point. It was good to see Matt Manning debut this season a little earlier than we probably all expected, but given the injuries to Turnbull and to Matthew Boyd, it kind of just needed to happen at that moment in time. And I thought he pitched pretty well. He had that one game where he gave, I think it was 9 runs. That was atrocious. But overall, I don't have a lot of complaints with what Matt Manning has done this year. I know he's technically been sent down at this point in time, but I think we will see him called up very soon, right after the All-Star break concludes. So that'll be good to see him back. I think that was just more of a schedule thing, so maybe they can get him another start to keep him with his schedule, his regiment. I'm cool with that. And again, it's more of a recent thing, but shout out to Willie Peralta. I mean, who would have thought we would have been talking about Willie Peralta 3, 4, 5 starts, whatever it's been at this point, heading into the All-Star break. But for what he's done, when he's been called upon, he's been consistent. He's gotten the Tigers to at least to a point where they can hand it over to the bullpen. Whether or not the bullpen brings it home, that's always a kind of a coin toss. But I'll give Willie Peralta some love and the fact that I think he's pitched pretty well too. And then let's see here. Real quick, keeping with pitching, The back end of the bullpen, got to give them some love. Kyle Funkhauser, Jose Cisnero. I know he's on the IL, but at a point in time, Michael Fulmer. And then, of course, our one lone all-star representative, Gregory Soto. It's been roughed up a little bit as of late, but I think those three guys, technically with Fulmer on the IL, I think those three guys on the back half, pretty good stuff, especially Kyle Funkhauser. I think he has really done a phenomenal job this season. There was a point in time I thought, had he made the team out of camp and he pitched like this in the month of April, I think he probably would have been the Tigers. He could have been right in the running with Soto, at least for the Tigers all-star representative. So shout out to Kyle Funkhauser. Cisnero's good too. I'll be curious to see if he gets dealt at the deadline. I think he's a sneaky guy that you could see being traded at the trade deadline just because he is a bit older. I don't know if he's in the Tigers' long-term plans. So it just kind of makes sense where he could kind of get dealt and maybe they'd get a nice little haul back in return, especially if you do a mix and match kind of thing with someone else on the team. But yeah, back end of the bullpen, starting pitching has been good. And, that Turnbull no-hitter was a lot of fun. Do you have anything else on the pitching side or?
Just real quick, just to kind of mirror a point, Kyle Funkhauser, unlike Buck Farmer, has been a guy who is thriving in that we need you to be the opener. We need you to pitch 5 through 7. We need you to come in the 8th. We need you to do coming into whatever spot they need him to come into and just doing his job and getting it done. It's been really great to see. And so that's kind of that is the model of the future, I think, for the Tigers pitchers.
Yep. I think that's a really good point. That's a very good point. Okay. Just kind of wrapping it up quick here with the offense. I think the biggest offensive standout in the first half of the season's got to be Jonathan Schoop, really having a great season, especially after his pretty awful first month of the season. He has completely turned it around. I'm just going to ask this question. I mean, it makes sense if he gets traded, given the fact that he would go to some team as a 1-year rental, not even a 1-year rental, a 3-month rental at this point. But then, there's also some rumblings that Tigers should maybe consider extending him. Where do you stand with that?
I would like them to extend him if he can go back to playing second base. If the plan is to find a first baseman, I don't think that he's the right fit at first base. He's done fine. And I love his bat in the lineup. But I think that, he's a Gold Glove second baseman, and I think that's become clear in this. But I think, what I might even like to see is him get traded away, and then, especially if he does enter free agency, then maybe they go talk to him. If the team, because unless that team, is assured that Schoop will sign, but I don't know that we're getting the kind of the haul from Schoop that any team that is looking for him to plug a hole might need that kind of assurance from Jonathan Schoop.
AJ Hinch made a comment maybe about a week or so ago saying that if guys want to come for if other teams want to come for our guys like Jonathan Schoop or Jose Cisnero, they're going to have to pay. This is not just, a freebie like, hey, yeah, you can take him and give us, one pitching prospect we've never heard of. Like, these guys are going to have to pay for him. And that made me very happy to hear, because Jonathan Schoop is having a hell of a season. I'm actually a little bit upset that Jose Altuve backed out of the All-Star game and that he wasn't put in there as a replacement. I think his numbers are really good. I think he is really solid defensively, whether he's at first base or second base. Obviously, like you, I'd rather him be at second than first, but that just is what it is. But I think Jonathan Schoop is a supremely underrated talent. He's not a guy with a big name. He's not a household name by any means, but he's really, really good. And I think, unfortunately, the fact that he plays for a team like the Tigers, who is, a bottom of the barrel team right now in the grand scheme of baseball, he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. And I truly think with Altuve being out of the All-Star game now, Schoop should have at least been talked about, highly considered, whatever the case may be, for him to take that spot. That's a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know what they'll do with Schoop. It's interesting. And also, to add more intrigue into the equation, he just recently signed, I believe, with Scott Boras. So now Scott Boras is his agent. So who knows? If they do trade him, though, Tigers, do not give that man away for free. Do not pull a Justin Verlander and pretty much give him away for nothing. Not saying that Jonathan Scope is Justin Verlander, but get a respectful and equal haul in return. That's all I ask. So we'll leave it at that. Keeping along with the offense, some pros. Great to see some first impressions from two guys, Eric Haas and one Akil Baddoo. Eric Haas, I think for me, is a story that no one expected to happen, similarly to Akil Baddoo. But Eric Haas is even more strange because all we had said for months and months and months, and this is another point I'm going to get to in a moment, was can we just give Jake Rogers a chance? No more Grayson Griner, no more Wilson Ramos. Just give Jake Rogers a chance. And little did we know there was this guy named Eric Haas who was going to be the second leading Tiger with home runs on this team as we go into the All-Star break. He plays a good catcher. He's not bad in left field. He's made some errors as of late, but again, he's a catcher playing the outfield, so you got to give him some leeway. I've been truly impressed with Eric Haas. And then in regards to Akil Baddoo, the Rule 5 draft pick that just keeps on giving, he had a hot start in the month of April, then he cooled off, and since then, he has quietly just been extremely consistent, and I think he should definitely be talked about in contention for Rookie of the Year if he keeps this up heading into the second half of the season. There's absolutely no reason at all with how well he has played, how quick he is on the bases. Yeah, he's made some mistakes here and there. He's good defensively, really solid with the bat. He should definitely be in talks for Rookie of the Year, I think, at this point in time. We'll see how it shapes up the second half, but as it stands right now, definitely should be getting some Rookie of the Year consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I think Akil Baddoo is a great story, but I want to focus a little bit on Haas, and I don't know if you have Jake Rogers in your pro list as well.
I do.
Certainly both Rogers and Haas, big pro for me, because once again, it puts the Tigers in a relatively cheap situation where we have two great catching options. There's zero reason in my mind for them to go sign a catcher in this offseason or try and acquire one. We've got two great options. So now that frees up more money for you, Chris, to go really get us a shortstop, to go really get us some middle infield help. To go get us some middle relievers even, and go get those pieces that we need for this team to compete. And what it does also set up for me, which will be interesting to track in the next few years, is how Dylan Dingler figures into this scenario. Because we're starting to, if Dylan Dingler becomes who he seems like he's going to become as a prospect, suddenly we have one too many catchers kind of hanging around the roster, which could be an interesting situation. And I'm not sure. It's a great fight to have.
Yes, it's a good problem. You're absolutely right. And you also are correct too. We better not this offseason see another stupid ass signing like bringing a guy like Wilson Ramos back into the fold. You have right now two really solid catchers with Rogers and Haas. You have a third really solid catcher coming up real soon with Dylan Dingler. You've got the tools at your disposal. Use them, and please do not sign a guy like Wilson Ramos. I'm sorry, Grayson Griner, your time is up too. We do not need to see Griner again in Comerica Park as far as I'm concerned. But that was a point of mine too, and I just put down for my note, Rogers finally got his chance, and I think he has done a really nice job with it. Do I think he's going to be the next Ivan Rodriguez or the next Johnny Bench, the next Mike Piazza? No, but I think with what he's been given, the opportunity has been given, he has done a really nice job with it. Sometimes he gets into some slumps offensively, and that was always kind of his biggest Achilles heel. I think he has hit much better, though, this time around than he did when he was called up in 2019. And defensively, he's right there. I never questioned his glove for a moment, and he's proven that to us with this call-up. It's just been more of a question of can he hit? I think he's done just a fine enough job to be where he's at with this team. When he's in the lineup every day, I'm happy to see him. He got his chance. Kudos to you, Jake Rogers. You earned it, my man. I'm very happy for him, and I hope he is around for a few more seasons to come, and he only gets better.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we just finished this up here. I just want to give two shout-outs real quick to Robbie Grossman and Jamer Candelario. Both solid. Robbie has had some hot and cold streaks, as has Candy. Candy hasn't played as well defensively as he did last year. That's a little frustrating. Robbie at times has some good at-bats, some at-bats where I kind of go, remember in the beginning of the year when we were talking about Robbie Grossman and all his walks and his walks and his walks and his walks. He still does walk a fair amount, no doubt about it. But he has had those kind of ups and downs where it's like, oh my God, like what's going on, Robbie? But then he comes right back and he gets right hot again. So again, I'm not saying they're, the two standout players on this team, but I'll say they're solid enough options. I enjoy watching them play when they're both, in the field at the plate. I give them both 2 thumbs up. I'm excited to have Robbie Grossman around for another year. If he even makes it another year, he could get dealt at the deadline. And I think Candy, as far as I'm concerned, has warranted some time to be in the discussion for the future. I haven't seen anything too bad from him. Like, maybe 2020 was a fluke with Candy. I think he's still performing well. Definitely probably a little bit of a down year compared to last season. But again, they're both solid players, and I'm happy with the club. So that's that. And finally, the big fella, the Hall of Famer, Miguel Cabrera. I put him on the pros list because similarly to Candy and Grossman, he's been solid this year. He's been Miguel Cabrera. The power is pretty much gone, but he's still getting base hits. He's making contact. He's getting to play the field more. And as I said on last week's episode, baseball is a better sport when Miguel Cabrera is playing and he is healthy. And for the most part this season, he's done that. I know he had a really bad slump too in the early part of the season, but let's just call it how it is. Everybody on the Tigers had a bad slump at the beginning of the season because they were awful. They were like 9-24. That is absolutely atrocious. But really ever since then, Miggy has come around. And the big pro for Miggy is he has put himself in a pretty nice position to make a really nice run for these milestones. Will they both happen this season? I don't know. 6 home runs away from 500. I think that's still for sure happening. I'd be very surprised if that didn't happen for Miggy in 2021. He is 73 hits away from 3,000. So I don't know. He would really there would be no room for a slump in the second half if you're Miguel Cabrera, if you want to get to that milestone. I do think it's more likely we see that sometime in April next year. But regardless, Miggy has put himself in a nice position to reach his milestones definitely within the next couple of months to early in 2022.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that we're going to have a fun September counting Miggy's hits as we get down to it. I think that he's really turned it around. He's gotten his bat working. He's seeing the ball pretty well. Definitely making nice contact and finding those gaps in a really nice way. It's fun to watch Miggy hit when Miggy's fun, just fun to watch when he's having a good time. And that's always been a blast, and looking forward to watching him chase those milestones the rest of the way. Yeah. No question in my mind that he'll get the home runs this year. I'm pretty sure we have at least 6 more games at guaranteed rate. So, and
I'm still confident. I'm confident still with my pick. I think I picked like the 2nd or 3rd week of August when they're in Baltimore. I'm confident he'll really have to start. He'll have to club some in the second half of July and the early part of August, but I think it can happen. He's got like 5 weeks to do it. Will it happen? Who knows? But I think it can happen. And if he doesn't do it in Baltimore, Miguel, please do it in the 3rd week of September when I drive up to Tropicana Field and watch the Detroit Tigers play the Tampa Bay Rays. Thank you so much.
Because he has had a lot of multi-hit games of late. And so I think with that, Luke, I think that you're going to have a decent shot of seeing him getting very, very close on the hits counter. If he can continue hitting on that kind of pace. It
is kind of a bummer to think he had that really bad slump in those first 2 weeks of the season and in the month of May early on. Had he just been able to just get a couple there. I mean, that's where it's going to come down to if you really want to make a run to get your 3,000 hits in this season, I think it has the potential that we could be in a situation where if he doesn't get it this year, he's like 2 hits away going into 2022. Yeah.
He'll be at like 2,998.
Yeah, it could be a thing where it's like, okay, you just had 2 singles on opening day. Congratulations, you got 3,000 hits. Like, we'll see. But overall, just to put a button on this conversation, I know this has been a longer show, but then again, we haven't really done a show like this in a few weeks, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
This team is playing better. There is still a lot of room for improvement. I can acknowledge that there have been some successes. In my opinion, there has still been many failures. Let's move on in this second half of the season. Let's play better defense. Let's continue to hit. Let's continue to see the growth and development with these young guys, both offensively and on the pitching side of things. Let's just see this Tigers team win games. I just want to see him win. I want to see him play competitive baseball, clean baseball, smart baseball. And luckily for them, they've got coaches who will make them do that. And if they don't do that, well, similarly to Wilson Ramos, it'll be sayonara.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, this team, as frustrating as it is at times, the franchise feels like it's moving in the right direction right now. Hesitatingly, I say that, but mostly because we will not know if we're actually in the right direction until 6 months from now, when Chris Ilitch does or does not start opening his wallet, because I do think we are at the point that we have enough of a core that if you add some really nice signings in the offseason, they can start to be pretty competitive in the Central.
I agree. We shall see. And God help us all.
Absolutely. And Luke, we will see you next week to talk more Tigers baseball.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a good week, all right?
You too.